busy day for everybody.
I've got only 15 minutes. Maybe वो PID में please.
Assalamu alaikum ji, and good afternoon. My name is Ubaid Qureshi and I am President Youth Parliament of Pakistan. On the behalf of all organizers including Institute of Strategic Studies Islamabad, Jammu Kashmir Self-Determination Movement International and Youth Parliament of Pakistan, I would like to welcome all of you. First of all, I request to Qari Khalilur Rahman Sahab, please recite the verses of Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والمؤمنون والمؤمنات بعضهم أولياء بعض يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر ويقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة ويطيعون الله ورسوله أولئك سيرحمهم الله إن الله عزيز حكيم صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah. For welcome note, I would like to request Honorable DG and President Institute of ISSI.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. On behalf of the Institute of Strategic Studies, I would like to commend Jammu and Kashmir Self-Determination Movement International, as well as Youth Parliament for organizing International Kashmir Parliamentary Conference. Only yesterday at a seminar, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, next door in the IRS, he stressed the need for parliamentarians to play their part. And this is true because the democracies are more sensitive to public opinion. And what's happening in the Indian occupied Kashmir, I think it's the parliamentarians which will probably be most effective voice. So I'm very happy that parliamentarians from Pakistan and parliamentarians from UK would be getting together. So my commendation to the organizers and also to the Honorable Minister for having made it convenient to attend. Because of shortage of time, I'm going to only restrict to these very preliminary parts. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Raja Najabat Sahab to proceed the ceremony.
نحمدہ ونصلی علی رسول الکریم اما بعد فاعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. چونکہ ابھی ہمارے باہر سے دوستوں نے جوائن نہیں کیا، اس لیے میں اپنی اردو میں ہی بات کروں گا اور شہریار افریدی صاحب کا، انسٹیٹیوٹ آف اسٹریٹجک اسٹڈیز کا اور آپ تمام دوستوں کا، بہنوں کا، بھائیوں کا مشکور ہوں کہ ریاست جموں و کشمیر کے وہ لوگ جو مقبوضہ کشمیر میں ہمارے لیے، پاکستان کے لیے، اپنے وطن کی آزادی کے لیے جدوجہد کر رہے ہیں اور قربانیاں دے رہے ہیں، ان کی طرف سے میں آپ تمام لوگوں کا شکریہ ادا کرنا چاہتا ہوں، اوورسیز کے کشمیریوں کی طرف سے خصوصی طور پر اور اپنی تنظیم کی طرف سے کہ آپ لوگوں نے ہمیں ٹائم دیا آج اس سالیڈارٹی کے دن پہ. اور اس سے قبل ہم ایک اور فنکشن میں شہریار صاحب اور میں اکٹھے تھے، تو خصوصی طور پر آج جس انداز میں اور جس طریقے سے شہریار افریدی صاحب ہماری نمائندگی کا حق ادا کر رہے ہیں، میں پوری کشمیری قوم کی طرف سے ان کا شکریہ ادا کرنا چاہتا ہوں. پچھلے 3 مہینے میں یہاں پاکستان میں موجود ہوں اور کوئی دن خالی نہیں رہتا جب ہمارا رابطہ نہ ہو اور ایک دوسرے کے ساتھ کام کے حوالے سے. اللہ تعالیٰ انہیں توفیق دے کہ ریاست جموں و کشمیر کے ان مظلوموں کے لیے وہ یہ یہاں بھی اپنی حکومت کے اندر بھی، اپنی پارلیمنٹ کے اندر بھی، کشمیری اور پاکستانی کمیونٹی کے اندر بھی اور بیرونی ممالک میں بھی، اور جو ہمارے دوست 2 بجے جوائن کریں گے ہمیں، چونکہ ہم نے پہلے برٹش پارلیمنٹیرین کو اور یورپین پارلیمنٹیرین کو 2 بجے کا ٹائم دیا تھا، اس لیے زوم پہ وہ ہمیں 2 بجے جوائن کریں گے، لیکن چونکہ خصوصی طور پر منسٹر صاحب نے اور جو کچھ سیشن پارلیمنٹ میں چل رہا ہے اس کی ریکوائرمنٹ یہ ہے کہ یہ واپس جائیں، تو میں بلا تاخیر جناب شہریار خان افریدی صاحب کو دعوت دوں گا کہ وہ آئیں اور اپنے خیالات کا اظہار کریں، ہم سے جو وہ کام لینا چاہتے ہیں اس کا اظہار کریں، اور جو کام وہ کرنا چاہتے ہیں کشمیر کی اس تحریک آزادی کشمیر کے حوالے سے، استحکام پاکستان کے حوالے سے اور ریاست جموں و کشمیر کے عوام کے حقوق کے حوالے سے وہ اپنے خیالات کا اظہار کریں۔ جناب شہریار خان افریدی صاحب۔
نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم اما بعد فاعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي صدق الله المولانا العظيم۔ میں سب سے پہلے رب کا جتنا شکر ادا کروں اتنا کم ہے کہ اللہ نے ہمیں ایسی سوچ عطا کی ان صاحبان کی شکل میں جو سٹیج پہ بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں، اور ساتھ ہی ساتھ عبید جیسے جوان جن کی کمٹمنٹ، پیشن اور پروفیشنل اپروچ الحمدللہ وہ بہت زبردست ہے۔ تو انسٹیٹیوٹ آف اسٹریٹجک اسٹڈیز الحمدللہ یور انٹائر ٹیم دے ڈیزرو لاٹ آف اپریسیشن، اور ماشاء اللہ یو ہیو پرووڈ یور ورتھ ایٹ آل لیول، اینڈ آئی بلیو یہ اب جو ہے تیسرے سے چوتھے گیئر والی بات ہے، وی نیڈ ٹو اسٹیپ آن دی ایکسیلریٹر، بیکاز جو بھی 35A اور 370 ایبروگیٹ کرنے کے بعد انڈیا نے کیا، اور جس طرح وہ ڈیموگرافک ٹیررزم، کلچرل ٹیررزم، انفارمیشن ٹیررزم کر کے انٹرنیشنل پالیٹکس میں ایک نئی اصطلاحیں انٹروڈیوس کر رہا ہے، اور ان اصطلاحوں کو انٹروڈیوس کرنے کے لیے جے کے ایس ڈی ایم آئی کا رول، راجہ نجابت صاحب کا اور ان کی ٹیم کا انگلستان کے، یورپ کے حوالے سے بڑا ہی امپورٹنٹ اور ایگزمپلری ہے۔ آج جب ہم بات کرتے ہیں پارلیمنٹیرینز کو انگیج کرنے کا، تو ہمیں یہ عام فہم تک یہ بات پہنچانی ہے کہ سیاسی قبلہ اور کعبہ دنیاوی لحاظ سے وہ ہمیشہ جمہوریت میں پارلیمان رہا ہے، اور پارلیمان جو ہے وہ ہمیشہ وائس آف دی نیشن ہوتی ہے، عوام کی آواز ہوتی ہے۔ جتنے بھی اپر ہاؤس، لوور ہاؤس کے ممبران ہوتے ہیں وہ عوام سے ہوتے ہیں، ہر طبقہ فکر، ہر پولیٹیکل پارٹی عام سوچ، فکر، روایات، اقدار، کلچر کو وہ ریپریزنٹ کرنے والے ہوتے ہیں۔ ان کی اپنی بنیاد سے، اپنی آئیڈیالوجی سے، ملکی مفادات سے، ملکی جو نیشنل سیکیورٹی ایشوز ہیں اس کے حوالے سے ان کو جتنی آگاہی ہوتی ہے شاید ہی کسی کو۔ اب اس پارلیمان کو اور اس پارلیمنٹری پروسیس کو، پارلیمنٹری انگیجمنٹ کو، رول کو ہم نے کیسے استعمال کرنا ہے؟ اب اگر ہم نے پارلیمان میں صرف ڈیبیٹس کرنی ہے، پارلیمان کے اندر جو کمیٹیز بنی ان میں ڈیبیٹ ہو، اور اسی طرح ان کے سجیشنز، ریکمنڈیشنز منسٹری آف فارن افیئرز کے پاس جائیں اور فارن پالیسی کا حصہ بنا کے اس کو مختلف ڈپلومیٹک فورمز پہ اٹھایا جائے، تو یہ تو فرض ہے، جس طرح نماز ہم پہ فرض ہے، یہ تو بائنڈنگ ہے، اس میں تو دوسری رائے نہیں ہے۔ اصل ہے کیا چیز؟ اصل چیز ہے کہ ڈپلومیٹک فرنٹ کے علاوہ جو پولیٹیکل فرنٹ ایز اے ڈیموکریٹ، آپ جو آج پوری دنیا جس طرح جمہوریت پہ یقین رکھتی ہے، اور وہ پارلیمنٹری یونینز ہوں، پارلیمنٹری فورمز ہوں، پارلیمنٹری پروسیسز ہوں، ان میں کشمیر کو یا اینی تھنگ ریلیٹڈ ٹو ہیومینٹی اس کو اتنا پریشرائز کریں, اتنی افیکٹولی ایک میکینزم ایز اے ٹیم ورک اس میں رول پلے کریں کہ دنیا اس کو سننے کے لیے تیار ہو. ابھی ہم نے دیکھا کہ میگنا کارٹا سے لے کر اب تک دنیا اور انسان جن جن فیزز سے گزرے, تو آج نئی فینومیناز انٹروڈیوس ہو رہی ہیں. یعنی کلچرل فرنٹ جو ہے has become a cultural arsenal now. یعنی آپ کا پاکستان کا ہندوستان کے ساتھ میچ ہے اور سونیا گاندھی وہاں سے ایک سٹیٹمنٹ دیتی ہے کہ ہم نے کلچرلی انویڈ کیا ہے پاکستان. اسی طرح چائنیز ہسٹری کو ہم دیکھ لیں تو ہم جب کلچرل ریولوشن کی بات کریں تو ہمارے سامنے بہت ساری چیزیں آ جاتی ہیں. ٹائنامن اسکوائر از اے کلاسک ایگزامپل آف دیٹ. تو سملرلی آج پارلیمان اور پارلیمان کے ممبران کا اور پھر پوری دنیا یو این سے جڑے ہوئے تمام رسپانسبل اسٹیٹ جو سگنیٹری ہیں, وہ تمام پارلیمنٹری یونینز, پارلیمنٹری جو پروسیسز ہیں, جتنے بھی پارلیمنٹس ہیں اکراس دا گلوب, جتنی پولیٹیکل پارٹیز ہیں, جتنی پولیٹیکل پارٹیز کے ممبران ہیں, چاہے وہ جس لیول پہ ہیں, ان کے لیے آج ٹیسٹ کیس ہے. کیا ٹیسٹ کیس ہے؟ ہیومینٹی. کیسے؟ آج ہمیں وہ بتاتے ہیں کہ سسٹینیبل ڈیولپمنٹ گول 17 پوائنٹ ایجنڈا کو آپ عملی جامہ پہنائیں. آج وہ ہمیں مختلف لیول پر ہمارے اندرون خانہ معاملات پر ہمیں وہ میسجنگ دیتے ہیں. اور سب سے بڑھ کر یہ کہ آج وہ اصطلاحیں انٹروڈیوس کی ہیں کہ ویمن رائٹس, ویمن امپاورمنٹ, چائلڈ رائٹس, چائلڈ پروٹیکشن, اسی طرح جینڈر ایکوالٹی, اسی طرح انسانوں کے حوالے سے ہمیں وہ انٹرفیتھ ہارمنی, مذاہب, فریڈم آف وائس, فریڈم آف ایکسپریشن, ان تمام چیزوں کے درس تو ہمیں دیتے ہیں. لیکن سوال یہ ہے کہ آج یو این کی ریزولوشنز جو 49 سے پینڈنگ ہیں, جو کمٹمنٹ ہے, یہ بائی لیٹرل ایشو کبھی نہیں تھا, یہ ملٹی لیٹرل تھا اور گارنٹر یو این تھا. اس کے باوجود کیوں خاموشی رہی؟ کیوں انسانیت سے سک رہی ہے؟ مذہب کے نام پہ ایک فاشسٹ کہہ رہے کہ گھر واپسی پروگرام, یعنی آپ اپنے اگر کسی بھی مذہب کے بلیور ہو, فیتھ پہ جس پہ بھی بلیو کرتے ہو, آپ واپس ہندو بنو ورنہ آپ ہندوستان میں رہ نہیں سکو گے. اس کے لیے ڈومیسائل لا, اس کے لیے سٹیزنشپ امینڈمنٹ ایکٹ, اس کے لیے مختلف قوانین, پھر ڈیموگرافک چینجز اور ڈیموگرافک خاص کر ٹیررزم کے حوالے سے 35 اور 370 کو ایبریگیٹ کرنے کے بعد ان کے کلچر کو, ان کے نارمز کو, ان کے ویلیوز کو, ان کے پراپرٹی رائٹس کو, ان کے جابز کو, ان کی ہر چیز کو انہوں نے چھین لی ہے, ان کی آئیڈینٹی ختم کر دی ہے. اینڈ اس کے بعد جس طرح کانسنٹریشن کیمپ میں وہ بچوں کو ڈال رہے ہیں, جس طرح وہ باربیرک اپروچ بچوں اور بچیوں کے ساتھ کر رہے ہیں, اسکول بند ہیں, ان کے ڈیو رائٹ سے ان کو ڈپرائیو کیا جا رہا ہے. پھر اسی طرح اولڈ ایج عورتوں کو ماس ریپ, جس طرح ایز اے ویپن اس کو استعمال کر رہے ہیں, ہیومینٹی کو جس طرح ابیوز کیا جا رہا ہے, اس پر بھی وہ خاموش ہیں. پھر ایک سٹیپ اور آگے جاتے ہیں. ایک اور چیز جو ہے وہ بڑی الارمنگ ہے, اور وہ الارمنگ کیا ہے کہ وہ ایکسپینشنسٹ ڈیزائرز, یعنی ایک طرف تو مجھے اور آپ کو فائنینشیل ایکشن ٹاسک فورس پہ کہا جاتا ہے کہ بینڈ آؤٹ فٹس ہیں, ان پر یہ کرو, ٹیرر فائنینسنگ روکو, یہ کرو, فلانا کرو. لیکن دوسری طرف ہندوستان جو کر رہا ہے اس پر بھی دنیا خاموش ہے. اور پھر مودی اور ان کے نیشنل سیکورٹی ایڈوائزر, ان کے منسٹرز کی جو سٹیٹمنٹس ہیں اس کو بھی سیریسلی نہیں لیا جا رہا. تو آج یہ ٹیسٹ کیس یو این کو اور پراسپرس ورلڈ کے لیے اس لیے ایگزامپل ہے کہ فیلیور آف نیشن سے انہوں نے نہیں سیکھا. اب ورسیلز ٹریٹی میں جو ہوا اور اس کا الٹیمیٹ ریزن لیگ آف نیشن کی ناکامی تھی, آج یو این کے لیے سب سے بڑا سوال اس لیے ہے کہ اگر روس کو ہم اس خطے میں شامل کریں, دنیا کی آدھی آبادی اس خطے میں آباد ہے. نیوکلیئر ڈیٹرنس ہے, اور نیوکلیئر ڈیٹرنس کے علاوہ جو ہندوستان کی پالیسیز ہیں وہ اپنے ملک کو تو چیلنج کر رہے ہیں, جو فارمر کے ساتھ کر رہے ہیں, جو رائٹس کو وہ بلڈوز کر رہے ہیں. سو اس میں کشمیر کمیٹی نے کیا کیا کہ ہمیں ڈائگنوسس کرنے تھے. یہ نہیں کرنا تھا کہ جی میٹنگ کر لی, پریس ریلیز جاری ہو گئی اور اینڈ میں رپورٹ سبمٹ ہو گئی, اور بڑی جی پارلیمنٹ کے اندر بڑی دھماکے دار اور بڑی زبردست تقریر کڑی, بڑی جذباتی کی, بہت رو لیا, بہت دو لیا, بہت لمبی لمبی چینز بنائی. نہیں, ابھی ان کے टर्फ पे उनके साथ उसी आंखों में आंखें डाल के उनकी सोच के मुताबिक उनका मुकाबला करना है। कैसे मुकाबला करना है? हमारे पास रेलेवेंट स्किल्स और एबिलिटीज हैं। नंबर 1, एकेडेमिया को एंगेज करना है, दुनिया की टॉप नॉच यूनिवर्सिटीज को रीच आउट करना है। पार्लियामेंटेरियंस, एकेडेमिया के रेलेवेंट वो लोग जिनके पास रेलेवेंट एक्सपर्टीज है, सिविल सोसाइटी है, और स्टेक होल्डर्स जो हैं कश्मीर के, उनके साथ मिलकर एकेडेमिया को रीच आउट करके नैरेटिव बिल्डिंग में मेन रोल प्ले करना है और यूनिवर्सिटीज को बताना है कि आप जो ओवरऑल एक परसेप्शन बेस्ड अप्रोच देते हो, थ्योरीज देते हो, जैसे क्लैश ऑफ सिविलाइजेशन, प्रोफेसर टिंगटन, आज द होल वर्ल्ड पीस इज एट स्टेक, एंड देन हु हैज टू कम फॉरवर्ड? Academia has to play a pivotal role in that. तो अभी इसी तरह लॉफेयर, हमने लीगल एस्पेक्ट्स को सामने रख के, ह्यूमैनिटी को सामने रख के, जो भी हिंदुस्तान कर रहा है, इंटरनेशनल कोर्ट ऑफ जस्टिस और बाकी जितने फोरम्स हैं, अगेन सब कमिटी बना के उनमें मेंबरान और राइट पर्सन फॉर द राइट जॉब वाली अप्रोच, प्रोफेशनल्स, उनको एंगेज करके अपना अल्टीमेट ऑब्जेक्टिव हासिल करना। थर्ड, cultural front. Culture has always played a pivotal role, और cultural front में sports always play a major role. तो sports जैसे PSL पाकिस्तान है, इंडियन प्रीमियर लीग, और इस तरह बाहर के प्लेयर जब आपके मुल्क में आते हैं, आपके कल्चर, आपके नॉर्म्स, वैल्यूज, आपके हॉस्पिटैलिटी, उससे वो आपकी आवाज बनते हैं, आपके एम्बेसडर्स बनते हैं। तो अभी कश्मीर प्रीमियर लीग, एंड ऑन टॉप ऑफ दैट, जब हम हाफ विडोज की बात करें, पैलेट गन्स के फैक्ट्रीज की बात करें, जब हम माइनर्स की बात करें, जब हम ह्यूमन राइट्स की बात करें, इंटरफेथ हार्मनी की बात करें, रिलीजियस फ्रीडम की बात करें, कल्चर, हेरिटेज, और ऑन टॉप ऑफ दैट आर्टिजन्स, वो स्किल्स की बात करें, जिनको, और टूरिज्म की बात करें, जो तमाम चीजें हिंदुस्तान ने ले ली हैं इलीगल इंडियन ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर में, हम उनके लिए कल्चरल फ्रंट पे ना सिर्फ सॉफ्ट पावर के थ्रू सिनेमा, टीवी, आर्ट, थिएटर, एंड ऑन टॉप ऑफ दैट हम ग्लोबल फोरम्स में जाएं, डिपिक्ट करें वो मिजरीज, और स्टोरी टेलिंग करें कि हाफ विडोस है क्या। यूरोप में माएं, बहनों, बेटियों को बताएं कि आप तो एक औरत के साथ जब उसके राइट को डिप्राइव किया जाता है, आप अगले की, मर्द की तमाम प्रॉपर्टी ले लेते हो, उसको पीनलाइज करते हो। लुक व्हाट इज हैपनिंग देयर, and who is responsible? State is abusing everything. State is responsible. Sanction and embargoes क्यों नहीं लगते, क्यों प्रेशराइज नहीं किया जाता? और उन फोरम पे लॉफेयर के थ्रू अब हम उनको कटहरे में खड़ा करके और कल्चरल फ्रंट के थ्रू उनकी असल हकीकत दुनिया को दिखाना। Another area is youth engagement. यूथ को एम्पावर करना। कैसे एम्पावर करना? कि अपने गैजेट्स को, आजकल हाइब्रिड वॉर, 5th जनरेशन वॉर, ये जो ओवरऑल दुनिया मुख्तलिफ सोच पर चल के अगलों को ह्यूमिलिएट और बुली करती है और उनके ब्रेन को समहाउ अंडरमाइन करती है और कंफ्यूज और डिस्ट्रैक्ट करती है। आज यूथ को ये बताना कि वीलॉगर बन के, ब्लॉगर बन के, आवाज बन के आप उनकी मिजरीज को हाईलाइट करें, घर में ना बैठे, डिस्कनेक्ट जो है वो खत्म करना है। यूनिवर्सिटीज, कॉलेजेस, स्कूल्स में जाके, and I must appreciate and applaud the president of Azad Kashmir. He has always been there, and we are working as a team. And I am also here, would like to mention the role of the Prime Minister of Azad Kashmir. He has always been very helpful and supportive. So similarly, it's always a teamwork. And the list यहाँ पे रुकती नहीं है। डिजिटल एरेना में, हम डिजिटल एरेना में भी जाएं। So कश्मीर कमेटी अपने मेंबरान को, सब कमेटी के चेयरमैन, सेनेट और नेशनल असेंबली, जेंडर इक्वालिटी को सामने रखे, पार्टीज की स्ट्रेंथ को सामने रखे, उन मेंबरान के साथ मिलकर, आजाद कश्मीर की गवर्नमेंट के साथ मिलकर, प्रोफेशनल कश्मीरी डायस्पोरा के साथ मिलकर, द एम एंड ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ आर इज कि पार्लियामेंट्स को रीच आउट किया जाए, पार्लियामेंट में जितने फ्रेंडशिप ग्रुप्स हैं उनको एक्टिवेट किया जाए, उन पार्लियामेंट्स के अंदर ह्यूमन राइट्स के हवाले से सिविल सोसाइटी को, और फिर वो तमाम पार्लियामेंटेरियन जो इंसानियत की और हकूक की बात करते हैं उनको एंगेज किया जाए। पार्लियामेंट्स के अंदर पार्टीज को बताया जाए कि आपकी पार्टी की ओवरऑल जो भी विजन है, जो आपकी अप्रोच है, एंड सबसे बढ़कर ये कि आपके जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है पार्टी का, उसके अंदर अगर ह्यूमन राइट्स हैं तो उसको कैसे यूटिलाइज करना है, उसको कैसे जोड़ना है कश्मीर के साथ। इन द एंड, दो इट इज अ daunting task, but nothing on earth is impossible. और यकीन जानिए जब आपके इंटेंशंस पॉजिटिव हों, जब आप कमिटेड हों और जब आप हिम्मत नहीं हारते तो अल्लाह आपको उसका अजर देता है. एंड क्लासिक एग्जांपल इज वो तमाम लोग जो इलीगल इंडियन ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर में हर किस्म की बर्बरियत का मुकाबला कर रहे हैं, उनको क्या क्या ऑफर्स नहीं है, बट दे आर नॉट गिविंग अप. सो इन द एंड द मैसेज इज Parliament has to play a pivotal role. Yes, parliamentary processes and parliamentary engagements and discourse need to strengthen and need to be taken to such a level through which we can achieve our desired objective. And in the end, always remember, there's another gentleman who has just joined. He is a very dear brother. When he was the blue-eyed of the entire nation, especially of the youth of Pakistan, I hardly met him once, but as a comrade, we have been interacting on regular basis. एक तराना, एक नगमा कौमों की जिंदगियों को मोड़ देता है. और कभी मौका है तो मैं आपको बताऊंगा. अबरार भाई, we are very fortunate to have such genuine son of the soil like you. हम रीच आउट कर रहे हैं कल्चरल फ्रंट से उन तमाम कश्मीरी पाकिस्तानी इल्म अदब और इल्म सखन और किसी हवाले से जो भी उनका ताल्लुक है, फिल्म मेकिंग हो, कुछ भी हो, कि आए, लिखें, किताबें लिखें, नज़में लिखें, एक नई जिद्दत पैदा करें और कौम और आने वाली नस्लों को बताएं कि व्हाट कश्मीर मीन्स टू अस. और हम सब पे कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर सकते हैं. दो चीजों पे पाकिस्तानी कौम कभी कॉम्प्रोमाइज ही कर सकती. एक अल्लाह और अल्लाह के महबूब पर, और दूसरा हमेशा हमेशा याद रखें, पाकिस्तानी कौम कभी कश्मीर पे कॉम्प्रोमाइज करने का तसव्वुर ही नहीं कर सकती. दिस इज द टाइम. वी हैव टेकन इट on our priority list and it is on the top of the agenda. My Prime Minister and the entire country is united on one thing, that now this is the time to expose India. EU Disinfo Lab has already exposed them and now we need to take it to a different level. We want you to be a part of this initiative. Please contribute, because at the end of the day we all are answerable to whom? To the people of illegal Indian occupied Kashmir, as well as all the Kashmiris across the globe, including Azad Kashmir. And then we are answerable above all to Allah. Allah पूछेगा इंशाल्लाह. हमने मिलकर इस कॉज में अपना रोल प्ले करना है. लॉन्ग लिव ह्यूमैनिटी, लॉन्ग लिव पाकिस्तान, कश्मीर. आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया. पाकिस्तान हमेशा हमेशा के लिए जिंदाबाद. थैंक यू सो मच. और मैं आई बैक लीव एज वेल जी. मुझे इजाजत है जी. थैंक यू जी. थैंक यू जी. मुझे वहां से
Thank you very much, Afridi Saab. On behalf of Jammu Kashmir Self-Determination Movement, International Youth Parliament of Pakistan, and ISSI, I would like to welcome whoever is joining us on the Zoom. Same time, I would like to special thanks to our Chairman of Youth Parliament of Pakistan and Chairman Pakistan Red Crescent, Ibrahim Haq Saab. We are lucky today that we have got two patriotic, we can't say them singers now, but they're patriotic Pakistanis, Ibrahim Haq and Zohaib Zaman from Mirpur. Although his song was supposed to be releasing tomorrow, but unfortunately it's moved up to 11th of February now. But that's a very special day as well in Kashmir history. A Kashmiri freedom fighter who led his life in Tihar prison a few years back, Mohammed Makbul Bhatt Shaheed. That was the day, 11th of February. So thank you very much, all of you. Can we have a couple of messages from parliamentarians from UK, and then we will welcome whoever joins us on Zoom? Please run the message, and then we will, whoever joins us, we will request them to speak.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Andrew Gwynn and the Member of Parliament for Denton and Reddish and Chair of Labour Friends of Kashmir. I'm very sorry I can't be with you at this conference today because I'm accompanying my father for cancer treatment, but I wanted to send a message of solidarity. I hope that the conference is successful, but also to say that as we look forward to this week's commemorations for Kashmir Solidarity Day, it's a timely reminder that after 7 long decades, the injustice of Kashmir is still left unresolved. It's beholden on the international community to come together to provide the voice for Kashmiris across the world, but especially in Kashmir, and to remember the suffering of those people who are under brutal lockdown in Indian-administered Kashmir in particular. So I want to send my solidarity, but also my promise to you that I will do all I can as a Member of Parliament in the British Parliament to ensure that the voice of Kashmir is heard, the story of Kashmir is told, and I will always push for justice to be done, and hopefully that one day the people of Kashmir will have that ultimate choice to be given the most basic human right of all, to choose how they are governed and by whom they are governed, and to live in peace and prosperity, inshallah. Have a good conference.
Can I welcome Lord Wajid Khan of Burnley? That's his first event today in the International Parliamentary Conference since he has taken over as a Lord. He was member of European Parliament before, and still he's the mayor of Burnley as well. Lord Wajid Khan, please.
Ji, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Peace and blessings upon you all. Thank you, Raja Najabat Sahib and Jammu and Kashmir Self-Determination Movement for organizing this conference. And I'm delighted to be among some excellent colleagues from the different political perspectives. And I just want to share that today, the next few days will be commemorating Kashmir Solidarity Day. It's a day to renew our hope and our work as parliamentarians, as activists around the world, to show our solidarity towards the people of Kashmir who have been suffering for 70 years. And I want to say to all my brothers and sisters, our mothers and children who are facing the barbarism of this, unfortunately, RSS-inspired BJP leadership, we will always stand with you. We will always be a strong voice. And in the United Kingdom, we have a moral duty, because in the 1947 partition, it was our role, unfortunately, that caused this particular problem. So I will work with colleagues to ensure that the Kashmir issue is raised at the very highest level, and we will see human rights abuses stopped in Kashmir, and Kashmiris are given the right to self-determination. I'll finish there. I see the Foreign Minister has arrived, just to say thank you for all the work you're doing. We will never forget our brothers and sisters in Kashmir. Thank you.
Thank you, Wajid. You have seen Foreign Minister, but I have seen him now. Can I welcome Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Makhdoom Shah Mahmood Qureshi Sahab, on behalf of the whole Kashmiri nation, whether they are in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, in Azad Kashmir, in Pakistan, all over the world. Today is a very historical day, and I would like to request Foreign Minister to pledge his support, his commitment, and his initiatives for the cause of Kashmir on behalf of Government of Pakistan and Pakistani nation. Makhdoom Shah Mahmood Qureshi Sahab, please.
Begin by thanking the organizers of this sitting for getting people together to speak on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. I would like to begin by thanking members of parliament from the United Kingdom and other parliamentarians who are participating in this webinar. Your support has been of immense importance. It has been critical. At a time when the military siege in India, in the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, has been in place for the last 18 months, where there's a communication had been made public, and we're expecting that the third report should come out. No one, unmotive observers deployed by the United Nations out of Srinagar. The question is, in this atmosphere, in this environment, people need hope. And you have given them hope. I want to thank the all parties parliamentary group on Kashmir in the House of Commons and the Lords, they're both members of this group, for giving me the opportunity to come to the House of Commons to speak on the issue. And I saw that the support that is given to us was across the party divide. There were members of the Conservative Party, there were members of the Labour Party, there were members from the Liberal Democrats who were there, members of the House of Lords were there, and it was heartening to see that all, human beings, were speaking about, brutalization that's taking place over there. We're speaking about the atrocities that are now ongoing. People are resilient. They have seen difficult times and they are going through a difficult time, undoubtedly. All they need is the world listening? And what the House of Commons has done, what the United Kingdom Parliament has done, what the European Parliament has done. Not what is being portrayed, and you've seen how India has been exposed by the EU disinfo lab, that how a campaign through fake NGOs, through fake media outlets and groups was together to malign Pakistan, to paint Pakistan in a particular color. Now, their general argument is that this is an internal matter. You and I know that this is an internationally recognized dispute. You and I know that there are in the Security Council on the Jammu and Kashmir situation. If it was an internal matter, that there was no need to be discussed in the Security Council. So that fallacy has been put aside. Indian point of view that things have returned to normalcy, that again verify the situation and report freely, independently. Anyone, as Foreign Minister of Pakistan, I am suggesting and I'm inviting observers, journalists, parliamentarians who want to visit our side of Azad Kashmir, they're welcome to do so. We have no inhibitions. We have nothing to hide. Go and meet people and form an independent opinion of your own and judge for yourself what the truth is. Are the Indians willing to allow you in? That is the question. And if not, then their argument and their propaganda that things have returned to normalcy is not true. There's a parliamentary debate going on, and I'm speaking to you from Parliament. I had to sort of excuse myself out because I had made a commitment to be with you this afternoon. And thank you personally for your contributions, for your statements, for many of you who have joined the Kashmiri diaspora in your countries, in whether it was London or Berlin or Paris or wherever, to show solidarity. Tomorrow is the 5th of February. It's a day of solidarity. And all over Pakistan and in Kashmir, on both sides of the line of control, people will be expressing solidarity with the martyrs, with the victims, with the people who are struggling for the right to self-determination. Thank you. Thank you for being there. Thank you for raising the voice. And I honestly feel governments at times can be somewhat, political expedience, at times, knowing reality, they choose to look the other way. But parliaments, human rights bodies, civil society, is important because we all believe in fundamental rights. It is important because we all believe in peaceful coexistence. It is important because we believe that this region and two states which are cannot, should not go to war. That will be suicidal. Kashmir, we want peace. We want to live in peace with India. But this will not happen until and unless this issue is resolved according to the wishes of the Kashmiri people. Let's not Pakistan. We are willing to engage. We have never been hesitant of engagement. And we feel if we have the argument, we will be able to carry it forward. And the world and the international community will listen. And if we have nothing to say, they will pay no attention to us, no matter how much noise we make. So it is important that you give us support. It is important and stand up for fundamental rights. You have been doing so in your countries. You have been, many of you have been articulating multilateralism. You have been speaking against extremism. You have been speaking against, racism, discrimination, and you've seen how laws are being enacted to discriminate against a particular community. You've seen how people are being lynched for things which are considered to be normal in the West. That's the kind of situation they are living. Help them, speak for them. Tomorrow, along with the Prime Minister, I will be going to Azad Kashmir to express solidarity with Kashmiris, and we will be speaking to Kashmiris, whether they are in on this side of the line of control, whether they live in UK, wherever in Europe they are residing, in America, wherever. We will not let you down. We will stand with you. We will give you political, moral, diplomatic support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Foreign Minister. Can I now request from Glasgow, a Member of Parliament from the Scottish National Party, Alison Thales, to say a few words. Alison, please, if she is still there.
I am. Good morning. Salam alaikum.
Good morning.
I'm delighted to join you this morning from Glasgow and bring the solidarity from my constituents and from the people of Scotland to this meeting this morning. And I thank the Foreign Minister very much for his words, which were incredibly important, and it was good to get an update on what was happening. And I want just to briefly say that from the UK Parliament's point of view, the UK government has a role to play here, an important role to play, and an obligation to help the people of Jammu and Kashmir and to realise that goal of self-determination which has been held and cherished for so long. And in Scotland, we understand self-determination. We have had a referendum in Scotland's independence, and inshallah, Scotland's journey will also be completed to independence. And we want, just like the people of Jammu and Kashmir, to have a choice. Whether you're for independence or whether you're not, that right to having a choice over your nation's future, of your people's future, of the direction that you wish to travel in together is vitally important. So I very much support that right of the people of Jammu and Kashmir to choose, to decide for themselves the type of future that they want to have. And that right has been denied to the people of Jammu and Kashmir for far, far too long. And I absolutely stand in solidarity with you through all that you have gone through. And I hope very much that your loved ones are safe. I understand it's particularly cold and bad weather in Kashmir at the moment, as it is in Scotland. And I send my solidarity and hope that everybody is well during this time, and that the rights that you very much deserve to assemble, to have your voice, to have the right to communications are restored as soon as possible. And I give my love and my thoughts to everybody there from my own constituents I know who care about this issue very deeply. It's always in their thoughts and they raise it with me regularly. And thank you very much for having me along this morning. It's been very interesting to listen, and I look forward to a good event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. Can I now request another young lady who was a contender for the leadership of the Labour Party from Manchester, a very close friend of ours, Rebecca Long-Bailey. Rebecca, please.
Thank you very much for asking me to speak. It's an absolute pleasure, and thanks so much for the update from the Minister. I think it was very helpful to find out where things are currently at. But as we all know on the call, this has been a tragedy for over 70 years now, and with the COVID situation, it's worsening every day. And sadly, even before COVID and when that started to dominate our news programmes, there was limited reaction about this issue around the world. And I agree with the comments that have just been made. I think to succeed, the British response to the Kashmiri situation has got to be based on the principles of the right of a people with a distinct historical and cultural identity to decide their own future. The sanctity of international agreements worked out by the United Nations, a peaceful and stable subcontinent free from the possibility of a regional nuclear exchange and the consistent application of human rights standards. That's the only way that we'll reach a peaceful solution to this conflict, which has plagued the lives of generations of people living in Kashmir and their families for far too long. Now, I applaud the work of the Kashmiri diaspora in Britain, and I have to say a personal note of thanks to one of my own family friends, Bashir Rakvi. We don't have a large Kashmiri community within Salford itself, and without him, even as parliamentarian, I wouldn't have been aware of the intricacies of this issue. And it's certainly people like him that have brought our community together in Salford, putting on events for local Labour Party members and local members right across the community to try and educate people as to what's happening. And every single person that goes to one of those events, when they're aware of what's happening in Kashmir, they're quite frankly horrified. But we've got to do more to keep this issue at the top of the agenda. At least one person, I think, that every day loses their life in the region, and that's completely senseless. It's unacceptable. Now, there is a solution. It was determined in 1948, and time for us as parliamentarians to do our part to encourage the UN and all world powers, including our own government, to ensure that this plebiscite is carried out. It's been far too long, and I think as a democratic nation ourselves and other democratic nations across the world, the right for a people to self-determine is the bedrock of a democratic society, and we should be making sure that we're fighting for that to happen in Kashmir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Can I now request another son of Sahel, the first Kashmiri who was elected member of British Parliament, Shadow Defence Minister, Khalid Mahmood MP from Birmingham, please. Khalid Saab. Is he still there? Yes, thank you.
I am just trying to unmute myself. Thank you very much. I am, and good morning and assalamu alaikum to everybody that's there. Thank you for making the effort. And I'm privileged to be able to join you here, Rajasab. I know that you certainly for a long time have been doing this, probably more years than I'd care to remember, for the amount of work that you've done fantastically for this very great issue. I think we're here today again to look at the issue of solidarity and look at the issue of the atrocities that have continuously been committed by the horrendous Hindutva government of Modi, which is singly only interested in the interest of the Hindu community in India. No longer is it a secular society, no longer is it a democracy. A democracy asks for the opinion of all of its people and represents their religious views and their views as an individual as well. This government has singularly failed to do that. It has consistently abused the human rights and civil liberties of the Kashmiris. And now, since August in 2018, this is the longest shutdown and the abuse of human rights. They have broken every single law in terms of human rights, in terms of civil liberties, and thrown to tatters the Geneva Convention, which is, if it was happening anywhere else, whole of the world would be up and in arms about it. The atrocities that continues, the summary beatings and torture of individuals, the rape cases as collective punishment for the whole community, that continues. The isolation from technology stops the constant contact with the outside world. So not alone are they physically cut off, they are also virtually, digitally now cut off to communicate with the outside of the world. This is absolutely horrendous, and it has gone on for far too long. So what we need to do is to actually start to refocus our efforts. Refocus our efforts in two ways. One, which we're doing here, and which is to press upon our government currently, which now needs to do deals in terms of Brexit with all sorts of countries, but they can only do deals when it comes to human rights and civil liberties. I think for too long, what we've done as a United Kingdom government is pick and choose who our partners are. You know, we're quite rightly making a noise about the Uyghurs in China at the moment, but what's happened to people for over 70 years who've been tortured, suffered, and isolated from across the world? What are their rights and civil liberties? What's happened to them? Nobody takes heed of that. So I think it's important for us now to look at this issue very, very seriously, to be able to do that. So we need to push our government here, and I'm sure all of us in the Commons and in the Lords, and particularly Wajid Bhai, who's just coming to the Lords, I'm sure will be very active in doing that, and we want to make sure that we do that. But it's really important now to push our government to do this. But secondly, and I think the biggest failure that the world has had is the failure of the United Nations. The United Nations is not fit for purpose. The United Nations doesn't do anything in relation to this. They have observers. They've seen reports. When I visited Pakistan in August 2018, and on the line of control, they had just sent over a cluster bomb. Now, cluster bombs are totally forbidden, illegal. And if it's anybody else, they'll be taken to the courts of human rights. The United Nations report was made on the scene. They saw what came out. Yet still, there was no action taken by the United Nations. Just a little report that comes through, and we have a bit of a discussion about it, but nothing done. Nothing done about the civil liberties, the human rights. And I keep saying the Geneva Convention, because Geneva Convention is as old as the Kashmir dispute. It is over 70 years now since the Geneva Convention came into place. Yet it's applied everywhere else apart from the Kashmiri people. Aren't the lives of the Kashmiri people worth anything? So we have to be really careful and get the United Nations to actually do something, or otherwise not. And I commend the minister, the Pakistani Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi Sahab, for the stance they've taken on this issue, and particularly to get somebody, at least from the IOC, to act and to take prosecution against Modi and his government in the International Courts of Human Rights. That is hugely important. So I thank the minister for that, and I hope that the Pakistani government continues to assist with that and work on that to make sure, at least if we can get one country to take this very seriously and to take this man to the International Courts of Human Rights. So with that, I think I just want to conclude, and I know there's a lot of speakers to come forward as well. I just also want to thank Ibrahim Bhai, who's there, who's really important for us to be here for him, because he is a hugely recognized figure. And somebody like him from Pakistan coming to the aid of the Kashmiris is a splendid thing to do, because the issue he can raise is far more than what we could perhaps raise. So I thank you for doing that. And Rajab, again, thank you for holding this conference, and look forward to seeing you when you come back. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Khalid Saab. Can I now request one of the great friend of Kashmiris, representing the government party as a co-chairperson of Conservative Friends of Kashmir, Member of Parliament from Peterborough, Paul Brestow, to say a few words, please. Paul.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and it's a great pleasure to be here and speak to you all and listen to the Foreign Minister, and I appreciate that update. Human rights in Indian-occupied Kashmir is absolutely key to politics in Peterborough, and is absolutely key to, I think, our rights to be able to call ourselves a civilized people, or people who are concerned about these sorts of issues. If you ignore what's going on that affects my friends, my constituents, their families, then I think you've got lots of questions you need to ask yourselves. And the thoughts and prayers of my constituents are never far away from what's going on in Kashmir, because, as I say, this is their friends, this is their family. And I speak with my constituents on a regular basis, and Kashmir is never far away. You can't grow up in Peterborough having friends and families from all different communities without understanding the issue about Kashmir. I want to extend my solidarity to the people of Kashmir and to you all from Peterborough. And I put down a number of written questions recently about the killings of 3 boys by the Indian military. And I will just say, on behalf of the government, they did take that incredibly seriously. And I think India are losing the PR war with their despicable acts. And I absolutely promise you on behalf of the Conservative Friends of Kashmir that we won't let these issues drop. We talk about self-determination. Quite honestly, I'm getting fed up to the back teeth with people telling me that this is a bipartisan issue between India and Pakistan. Here in the UK, we would never countenance surrendering or never countenance discussions over the sovereignty of, say, the Falkland Islands or Gibraltar without the wishes of the people of the Falkland Islands and Gibraltar being taken into account as an equal partner in those discussions. So if it's good enough for the people of Gibraltar, if it's good enough for the people of the Falkland Islands, if it's good enough for the people of Scotland, then it's good enough for the people of Kashmir. And our commitment to human rights, democracy and self-determination should be absolute. I will just make a couple of points. I did hear the idea of prospects of perhaps relations between our country and India and perhaps a trade deal. Well, I absolutely promise you that this is my personal view. I think the prospects of any sort of trade deal with the Indian government and the UK government is about as far away as the sort of deal that could be reached with China. Not just because of their appalling human rights records, but also because I never think the Indian government will never open up their professional services market, and it's a complete red herring. And I just don't think this is ever likely to happen, thankfully. But I'd also like to say that there's a note of optimism in the air, because in the same way that we talk about the Uyghur persecution in China and the way we talk about what's happened to the Rohingya population in Myanmar, I think we are now in the same breath talking about what's happening in Kashmir. And I'm making sure that that debate is being heard loud and clear, certainly on my side of the house. We've got a growing number of Conservative MPs who have joined our organisation, Conservative Friends of Kashmir. The issue is getting more and more recognition amongst our side. And I want to also just pay tribute to some of the speakers from the Labour Party, who I know have been campaigning on this as well. And Sarah Owen from Luton North held a debate only recently in the House of Commons, where many of us took part and highlighting the appalling human rights record. I know that if we continue to talk about human rights abuses, if we continue to talk very calmly but very, very determinedly about these issues of self-determination, pointing out the flaws in the logic that the people of Kashmir do not count, their voice does not count when we're talking about the future of that region. If we do this, I know that we will win the argument. And once we win the arguments, then we'll begin to see action and we'll begin to see justice. So thank you very much for allowing me to come and speak to you today. And rest assured of my solidarity with you and the people of Kashmir.
Thank you very much, Paul. Can I, although Paul has already mentioned that Sarah Owen, member of Parliament from Luton North, she arranged and managed to get debate in House of Commons last month on 13th. She has to leave soon, so I would like to request and thank on behalf of the Kashmiri nation to Sarah Owen MP, who's very close friend of our colleagues Mohammed Azam and Yasmin Dar. Sarah Owen, to say a few words, please.
Thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me and for organising this fantastic conference. It's a real privilege to be able to speak along such esteemed participants, the Foreign Minister and all the other speakers at this conference. And when we held that debate that Paul Bristow just mentioned in Parliament last month, I argued if you care about human rights, you care about Kashmir. And that sentiment, as he said, was shared by the MPs that took part in that debate. And I know wider across Parliament, many that weren't able to speak that day also share that sentiment. And it goes across the House. The lockdowns, shutting off connections, the terror, the fear that women and girls feel in particular, this cannot and should not continue. The atrocities, the rapes, the abuse, the state-sanctioned Islamophobia should be condemned by all in the international community. And we are starting to see progress. It is part of the human rights conversation whenever you talk in the UK, but that should happen internationally as well. Because people should be able to live from fear. And we must see the Kashmiris' absolute right to self-determination delivered. And the international community has a duty to support delivery of this through the UN resolutions. Kashmiris need and should determine their own future. Because at some stage, I want to come to a conference that says, what next? What does the future for Kashmir look like once we've realised those rights? So I send our enduring solidarity from the people of Luton North to the people of Kashmir until their human rights are protected. But we must also act. After Brexit, the UK government now has an opportunity to put their money where their mouth is when it comes to human rights. I would hope to see a moral and ethical case when we look to future trade deals. I know there are many other speakers today, but I wish you well and solidarity now and always, and I hope you have a fantastic conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Can I now request another friend of Kashmiri Nation and Member of Parliament from Leeds, Richard Bergen, to say a few words, please. Richard is a very close friend and always supported us in the past. Richard Bergen, please.
Thank you, Rajan. It's great to see so many people on a cross-party basis on this call. And of course, I want to echo the sentiments expressed by all the speakers, including, of course, Andrew Gwynn, who left his message for the start of this meeting. And it was fantastic to hear also from the Minister. And we've got to ensure, as parliamentarians, that the UK never forgets or reneges upon now its special duty towards the people of Kashmir. Of course, we can't say this is simply a bilateral matter. We owe a special duty to the people of Kashmir. And to have to campaign and wait for decades and decades for justice and self-determination is completely unacceptable. And people in my constituency in Leeds East who are either born in Kashmir or whose family or ancestors come from Kashmir, for every day of those 70 years have felt the burning injustice in India-occupied Kashmir. We can't allow this to disappear from our front pages. We can't allow this to disappear from our discussions about human rights. Self-determination for the Kashmiri people is, of course, being denied. The United Nations resolutions are treated almost as if they don't matter. And day in, day out, people, Kashmiri people, face human rights abuses. And it's right that parliamentarians are calling out and denouncing the human rights abuses of the Modi government. And even in this international public health crisis, we can't forget the plight of people in Kashmir who, of course, were forced into a lockdown of another type before coronavirus, the lockdown imposed by the government of India. And I do believe that more and more people are speaking out. And I want to congratulate all the campaigners in our country who are ensuring that members of parliament can never forget the campaign for self-determination and human rights in Kashmir. It's more than overdue that the United Nations fulfills its promises to the Kashmiri people. And as part of that, the UK must recognise our special duty to the people of that region. We must recognise our special duty to speak up for human rights and self-determination. It shouldn't be too much for the people of Kashmir to have what they've been promised, a free and fair plebiscite. And of course, concerns have been raised about preparations the government of India have made in order to try and skew the outcome of any such plebiscite. But we need that plebiscite. We need it to be free and fair, because the Kashmiri people need to be able to determine their own future. And the Kashmiri people need to be able to put decades of gross violations of human rights behind them, and look forward to a better future together. You have my solidarity, you have my support, you have the solidarity and support of all the people on this call.
Thank you very much, Richard. Can I now request one of our friends who played a very special role in the European Parliament, Anthea McIntyre, former MEP from Conservative Party from West Midlands, to say a few words. Anthea, please.
Thank you, and assalamu alaikum. It's very good to be able to join you today to express solidarity with the people of Kashmir. And it's also really good to see former colleagues from the European Parliament on this Zoom today. So I can see Amjad Bashir, my former colleague, and Afzal Khan, and Wajid Khan. And I would like to congratulate Wajid on his peerage. It's really good to see you in the House of Lords. I think also I really want to pay tribute to Raja Najabat Hussain, whose tireless efforts keep this matter at the forefront of the agenda, not only in Pakistan and Kashmir, but also very much in the UK and across Europe, because it is still the case that the European Parliament supports and has solidarity with Kashmir. It is really good to see Foreign Minister Mr. Qureshi today. I have met him before, both in Brussels and in Islamabad, when a group of us, a number on the call today, visited the Azad Kashmir and were able to meet all sorts of leaders in Islamabad as well. And he mentioned the fact that it's fine to visit the Pakistan side, Azad Kashmir, but India will not allow us and did not allow us back in 2018 to visit Indian occupied Kashmir. And it's very important that we keep up the pressure to allow people from outside the region to see what's going on and to be able to report on the atrocities and the abuse of human rights that we continually see. The other thing that Mr. Qureshi raised is a thing that some other have been raising, and that is that this is an international issue. It is not an internal dispute between India and Pakistan. It is an issue that affects the whole world. And I am pleased that in the UK, we are starting to take more notice of human rights linked to trade. And in the same way as that we are calling out the atrocities of China against the Uyghur people, we also have to make sure people understand the atrocities that the Indian government is perpetrating in Kashmir. Of course we want trade, but not trade at any price. And one of these days we have to say to India, a great nation, a country that should not have this terrible stain on its record, we have to say to them, trade is not possible until you comply with human rights in Kashmir. So it's great privilege to be with you today and, as I say, to express all solidarity with the people of Kashmir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anthea. Can I now request another friend who has attended a lot of events, conferences, and visited Azad Kashmir twice. Great friend from northwest of England, Julie Ward, please. Julie Ward. Julie, please speak now.
Thank you very much, Raja. It's lovely to see you, although I wish we could be together, enjoying the wonderful food that we often share. And of course, we have a common cause, and that does go right across party lines. I think the issue of solidarity is hugely, hugely important. Solidarity is actually a core value of the European Union, along with human rights, peace and democracy. And I was very proud to stand up for those rights when I was an MEP and to be unequivocal in my support for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And former MEPs who are on the call here today will remember that the European Parliament voted to support the UN binding mechanism on human rights in trade agreements in the autumn of 2019. And we should be demanding that the UK government actually also follows that line. And we can't have trade at any price because people will suffer. I want to talk a little bit about education, and I thought that Rebecca Long-Bailey was very honest and inspiring in her remarks earlier when she talked about how a constituent had educated her about the situation. And I think that there are many places in the world where the politics are complicated. And so we often turn away because we don't want to deal with the complexities. So Israel-Palestine is an example. What's happening in Hong Kong at the moment is an example. And of course, the same with the issue about Kashmir and Jammu. And many people feel it is too difficult to understand the historical perspective. And so they don't engage. But when I was elected in 2014, I made it my business to become educated about all the issues that concerned my constituents. And of course, there's a very large Kashmiri diaspora in the northwest of England. And they welcomed me into their lives and taught me their culture. And I returned that trust by always standing up for them. Our quarrel isn't with the Indian people. It's with the government. It's with Narendra Modi and the BJP party. And we must remember that many minorities in India are also suffering. And so we have to stand in solidarity with those people too, with the farmers on the streets at the minute whose livelihoods are under threat, with the people who've been shut out of all kinds of democratic processes, with women. India has one of the worst records for gender-based violence in the world. And one of the reasons why I came into politics was because of the terrible rape and subsequent death of Yayoti Singh Pandey, who was the bright young student who was raped on a bus in Delhi. There are lots and lots of situations with people in India where we need to show solidarity with them. And I think it's really important that we are clear about who our quarrel is with. I will be continuing to take this issue into all the campaigning work that I'm doing. I haven't been idle since the tragedy of Brexit. I've continued to be a strong voice for human rights on the global stage. And I've been asked to chair a really important conference at UNCSW, which normally means we go to New York, but this year it will be online. It's happening on March the 17th. It's being convened by my human rights lawyer friend, Margaret Owen. It's a conference organized by her NGO, which is called Widows for Peace and Democracy. And what I've done is to bring the issues that are experienced by the people of Jammu and Kashmir, the violations that they've experienced. I've been bringing those into my work. So I will be speaking, and we will be inviting people from the region to speak about their experiences. And one other thing is perhaps just to say that some of you will have known about the disinformation campaign that has been carried out in Brussels by agents and press and media employed by the ruling party in India. And this is a concerted lobbyist campaign. And I was to basically discredit the case for Jammu and Kashmir self-determination and really to smear the government of Pakistan too. And I was very pleased to work very closely with the EU Disinformation Lab to expose what has been happening on with these unashamed lobbyists who actually took Brexit Party MEPs on an all expenses paid trip to Kashmir, despite the fact that that credible experts and MEPs on an official visit were not allowed to go. And so I will put into the chat links to both the conference in New York at UNCSW and also the report that Disinformation Lab did. And let's all be aware, you know, of these detractors and the people who would sway us from our course for peace and justice.
Thank you very much, Julie. I'm sorry, two of our guests, Judith Cummins, Member of Parliament from Bradford South, and Afzal Khan, Member of Parliament from Gorton, has to leave for the parliamentary business. Now I would like to request Chairperson, All Parties Pakistan Parliamentary Group and Member of Parliament from Bolton, Barrister Yasmin Qureshi, to say a few words. Yasmin, thank you very much for a long time.
Yes. So Assalamu alaikum and good morning and good afternoon, depending on which part of the country you're in, because some people are in a different time zone. Firstly, I just wanted to say that previous speakers have talked about the legal situation regarding Kashmir in the sense of how it came to about and the UN resolution requiring there to be an election so the people of Jammu Kashmir and Azad Kashmir can decide their future. Many of my other colleagues and previous speakers have also talked about the human rights abuses that are taking place in Kashmir. And you are right to say that when we're now talking about the Uyghurs and other groups, you know, we should also be talking just as much about the Kashmir issue. And there I want to pay tribute to Raja Najabat for many years for working on this cause and for him now being able to have so many members of parliament who have learned about what's happening in Kashmir through his efforts and the constant briefings and meetings that we have with him. And obviously I want to thank all my parliamentary colleagues. I know all of them in their own way have been raising the issue of Kashmir. But I think what I want to talk about is how at this moment in time, it's become really urgent. So the issue of Kashmir has always been there in the background, or, you know, in the sense of people knowing about it. But when you had kind of reasonably secular governments in India, things weren't thrown into your face as much because what they were doing was they weren't really tinkering with Kashmir or changing its demographics. They were just not dealing with it, but they weren't kind of openly repressing it in the way that Modi's government has done, you know, with 800,000 odd soldiers now roaming in Kashmir with a population of what, 10 million or something. So I think things have now changed under Modi. And the worrying thing is that the last election, Modi re-won it on the basis that he was going to get really tough in Kashmir. And that was one of the reasons a number of people voted for him. So the challenge that we are facing now in relation to Kashmir is even greater than it was under previous prime ministers and previous governments. And since he's been on board, Modi and the BJP and as Khalid Mahmood, the Hindu Avatar movement now, we have seen not just human rights abuses, but the fact that all the laws have been changed. So now for the first time, people who don't live in Kashmir can actually buy land and live in there. And that was a specific requirement in the old days to not to change the demographic, but they're doing that. Another thing is people can come from outside, take up certain types of jobs, but now civil servants and public officials can have jobs who are not from Kashmir as well. And this is clear, and also the fact that they've now split Kashmir into 2 regions. And it's all designed to do a complete takeover of Kashmir, change the demographics, so that if in future a government did come to want to resolve the issue of Kashmir, they would find that the on-the-ground situation is so bad that it becomes even harder challenge. And it's actually, in some respect, and I mentioned this before, it's no different to what Israel has been doing in Palestine and the West Bank and the occupied territories, because again there, although Israel is the controlling power under international law, you can't put settlers in, you can't put your own people in there. However, they've done that. And the reason they've done over 500,000 settlers is, again, to make it the demographic shift and the changes so that, it becomes hard to actually have a state for Palestine or give them a state. So same tactics being applied in India. And in India, they're talking to people like Steve Bannon, and they've had discussions with the Israeli government who've been working with them, especially Netanyahu. And so I think it's a really crucial time. And I think we all need to up our game on Kashmir. I know all of us have been talking about it, but we really need to be working hard. Like somebody talked about approaching the IOC to see whether, a country can be persuaded. I mean, Gambia has taken Myanmar on at the ICJ. And I know that the IOC did have funded that particular case. We need that. The IOC is to get things going. And I think in our own parliament, we need to do that. I don't know if Paul Bristow is still on the call, but next week, Ranir Jayawardena is having a meeting with MPs to discuss about trade with India. And I think he's invited MPs as well as members of the House of Lords. I fully intend to go to that meeting next week, and I'm going to raise the issue of human rights abuses and how in good conscience we can do that. And I'd urge my colleagues from the Lords as well as from the Commons to attend that meeting. But I think it has, and I think everybody here knows, but it's become much more urgent now, the situation in India, because they are doing things which are dismantling Kashmir as we know it and as it currently exists. So that's what I really wanted to flag up. And Raja Saab, myself and others I know on this call have always been supporting this cause. And again, thank you for that. I can assure you we will continue to push from our end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yasmin. Thank you. Can I now request a former member of European Parliament? No, sorry. I will call Lord Saab first because Lord Qurban Hussain is Secretary General of APPG on Kashmir, and I would like to request him to say a few words first, and then Amjad Bashir, former MEP.
Thank you, Raja Rajabu Saab, for inviting me to this seminar to show my solidarity or continued solidarity with the people of Kashmir. A lot has been said, but I think few things need to be put on record, although they might have been said many times. I mean, first thing that I would like to reiterate, and that is that Kashmir is an international dispute. It is not a bilateral issue by any means. And the United Nations resolutions are a proof of that. And also the continued UN observers on the both sides of line of control is a evidence that it is an internationally recognized dispute, which has to be resolved according to UN resolutions. And people of Kashmir have got the final say through a plebiscite to decide about their future. The human rights situation in Kashmir is again been discussed, but I have to say that this is happening. I mean, illegal detentions are happening, torture, rape, killings under the impunity under Armed Forces Special Power Act, which is a draconian law, and anything that the army does in Kashmir cannot be questioned in any court of law. That is very, very dangerous for any country to allow their army to act as they wish, and they cannot be challenged. And this has happened in Kashmir continuously since 1990. So the army has had a free hand, more or less, a license to kill in Kashmir over these 30 years, and they've been doing that regularly. And the extent of the atrocities, the abuses, they can be verified by various international organizations, including Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the United Nations Commission for Human Rights. The United Nations Commission for Human Rights report 2018 and 2019 have in detail discussed these issues, and they have asked for a free access to go and investigate these reports of human rights violations. But as it's been widely reported that India has refused to cooperate with that altogether. And then we had the UN Rapporteur's report in 2020, who has again very clearly said that the situation in Kashmir is really demanding quick action, and has asked the international community to intervene. The United Nations Security Council has met 3 times between 2019 and 2020 to discuss this particular issue, but sadly no decision has been taken. And this is very frustrating for Kashmiris, that the United Nations Security Council meets and discusses this issue, but doesn't go any further and doesn't make any decision to do anything about it, and still seem to be sitting on the fences. We here in UK, we have a strong all-party parliamentary group on Kashmir, and that I have been part of for many years. And the group has been working very well. And I think we have had a few delegations over the last few years into Azad Kashmir, although we tried to visit the Indian side as well, but they have never cooperated and never allowed us to visit. And that is another a sign that India has, if it has got nothing to hide, well, why is it stopping the British parliamentarians to visit the area? I think what we ought to continue to do is to pressurize our own government, particularly in the light of Brexit, when we are going to have new trade deals with India, is ask India, well, we must have this part of the deal is to ask India to bring an end to these fake encounters and stop target killings, and bring an end to torture, and release thousands of political prisoners, including Shabir Shah, Mohammad Yassin Malik, Asya Andrabi, and others. And I think we should also, put much more pressure than we ever have done for India to lift Armed Forces Special Power Act from Kashmir and bring those who are responsible for human rights violations from the forces to justice. And finally, I would say that we will like to press more on our own government to pressurize India to come to a negotiation table and bring a peace process between India and Pakistan to resolve Kashmir dispute according to the wishes of the Kashmiri people. Thank you again for inviting me and listening to me.
Thank you very much, Lord Saab. Lord Qurban Hussain is a Liberal peer. And now I would like to request a member of the Conservative Party, former MEP from my own region, Amjad Bashir Saab, to say a few words. Amjad Bashir Saab.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to everybody who's assembled here today. I must say I'm delighted to see you all today for this very noble cause in which you, Raja Sahib, and your team have been working tirelessly for several decades now. And to bring about a united front from all political parties from across the spectrum is a great feat of endeavor and a great achievement for you and your colleagues. And I say well done to you. Also, it's a great opportunity for me to see some of my colleagues from the European Parliament here today. Afzal Khan Sahib, Wajid Khan, now a member of the House of Lords, and I congratulate him on this forum for becoming a peer, richly deserved. Also, Julie Ward, Anthea McIntyre, all the other MEPs that we work together on this cause and others in the European Parliament. I also take heart from what was said by Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi Sahib, and is bringing us up to date with this issue. I think that I'd just like to mention just a few things, because I know time is pressing and there are very good speakers to follow me, and I think they should be given time. I'd just like to bring to your attention the case recently of a father, Mushtaq Ahmed, who's made a grave for his son, a son that he can't find, a son that just went out to enroll in school, was brutally abducted, tortured, and murdered by the Indian forces. This is just one case of nearly 100,000 deaths that have taken place in Indian-occupied Kashmir since the early 1980s. Over 10,000 rapes of women and young girls have taken place. This is why all of us on DUA, Human Rights Committee in Europe, argued again and again for human rights abuses to stop in Indian-occupied Kashmir, for the world to wake up and realize and stop this abuse. I think that as a father and a grandfather myself, I can understand the sadness of Mushtaq Ahmed. I just want to mention one or two other things. I think somebody mentioned earlier, no, Lord Qurban Sahib mentioned the case of Yasin Malik. I think this has to be highlighted. I think if Alexei Navalny, I hope I pronounced that correct, the Russian political activist can be hailed, so should Yasin Malik and others. They are the Nelson Mandelas of today. I think we, as people who love democracy and live in the West, should highlight when people are fighting for human rights, when people are fighting for political freedoms, because we are parliamentarians, we believe in democracy. We should hail people like Yasin Malik and his incarceration in jail for simply asking for rights of self-determination. I'm sure you'll recognize that peaceful resolution is the best way forward. If you look at the case of Czechoslovakia, the parted company making two different nations, the Czech Republic and the Republic of Slovakia, I think Kashmiris should decide their fate has been determined by the United Nations. And this argument that it's a dispute between Pakistan and India is very false, as has been highlighted earlier. We had what seemed an intractable dispute in Northern Ireland. A resolution came about because of Senator Mitchell and others coming together internationally to try and resolve the issue. Kashmir has to be resolved on an international basis. It cannot be done on the basis of two nations. This is spurious and wrong. The Shimla Accord was basically about a war that took place at the end of 1971, in which Bangladesh came into being, and it was to allow troops from either side to return home and to settle that matter of 1971. It was nothing to do with Kashmir. Kashmir is an international dispute and it has to be settled as such. Lastly, I want to say that a year ago, if not two, Prime Minister Imran Khan Sahib visited the United Nations and gave a very strong speech about the dispute of Kashmir and its resolution and its importance of its resolution. I think this needs to happen again. I think Khan Sahib is recognized throughout the world as somebody who's tirelessly fighting corruption, tirelessly fighting for justice, not only in his country, but throughout the world. I think Khan Sahib should go again to the UN. I know these days travel restrictions are taking place. I know it's virtual, but his voice carries a lot of resonance. Once again, thank you very much for inviting me. I won't take too much of your time because I think there are some very interesting people we need to hear from. Thank you, Raja Sahib.
Thank you very much, Amjad Sahib. We have got another distinguished guest and very supportive of Kashmir cause when he was first in the European Parliament in the second term. Now again, he's in the European Parliament, Phil Bennion, member of the Liberal Democrats from the European Union, to say a few words. He's still working on the project and Kashmir cause, promoting with his friends and colleagues in the European Parliament. Phil, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm not going to take much time today because I'm not going to repeat any of the well-known issues that and positions we've taken in the past. I just want to raise one new possibility. You will all know that the Western democracies are increasingly threatened and see China as a strategic rival rather than just as a trading partner. And there has been, since the American election with the Biden camp, there has been a big move, overtures to the European Union, and the European Union, in fact, had already suggested that they have talks with the Americans in terms of creating some sort of strategic partnership to counter this Chinese influence and Chinese challenges to democracy. The UK will almost certainly get drawn into this alliance, as will Australia, who have got an interest, probably Canada because of their human rights records. But it's very, very clear, and the murmurings are that the Americans very much want India as part of this alliance. And the murmurings from India are that India is very, very keen to be part of such an alliance, particularly with their historic position of rivalry with China. Now, where this could have an opportunity, could create an opportunity, is that while the opportunity is only there until such time as this alliance is fully formed. Once India's on the inside, it will be too late. But there is obviously leverage here, potential for leverage on India's democratic problems, particularly regarding Kashmir, for the big powers, for the Western powers, to put pressure on India in terms of joining this alliance, to actually come to the table over Kashmir. This is obviously going to cause some issues for Pakistan, because we know that one of the angles China has been taking is to use their Belt and Road Initiative loans as pressure to form a caucus in the United Nations. So we have got, on the one side, we know that Pakistan is actually one of the countries that has taken out loans with China. I know that they have, the government in Pakistan has been working to renegotiate and reschedule these loans, but so they're somewhat compromised. But I think there is a obvious interest here in supporting India's aspirations to join this front against Chinese, the pressing of Chinese influence, but as a bargaining chip against doing something with Kashmir and actually getting India to the table to start some negotiation and some real negotiation. So this is a very, very short window, and the pressure has to be applied on the Americans. It needs to be behind the scenes diplomatic pressure, probably coming from Pakistan. The UK could help, and I just want to point this this opportunity out to the people here, because some of the people here are the people who could actually probably do something about it. And I think that's, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Can I now request a representative of our All Parties Hurriyat Conference, Parvez Ahmed Advocate, who is Secretary General of All Parties Hurriyat Conference from Islamabad, and he represents the whole Hurriyat. Parvez, please.
Mahmudun Sallallahu Rasul Kareem, Auzu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Respected Najabat Saab, panelists, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hazar dasht pade lakh aftab ubre, jabin pe gard palak par nami nahi aayi, kahan kahan na luta kafila fakiron ka, mataye dard mein lekin kami nahi aayi. All Parties Hurriyat Conference has sent a delegation to attend this important conference. My colleagues, Raja Shaheen and Ejaz Rahman, you have just permitted me to speak on their behalf, and I'm highly thankful to you. First of all, I would like to thank Raja Najabat, who has been working day in, day out for the Kashmir cause. I'm in contact with Raja Najabat for the last 20 years, and what I saw, he has been traveling from England to Pakistan and other areas, and I could say Kashmir cause is a passion for him. Raja Najabat Saab, I'm highly thankful to you on behalf of All Parties Hurriyat Conference. Keeping in view the importance of Solidarity Day, which is being observed by the state of Pakistan tomorrow, I felicitate on behalf of All Parties Hurriyat Conference, which represents heartbeats and aspirations of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, to the state of Pakistan, institutions of Pakistan, and people of Pakistan for showing the solidarity at the national level with the people of Jammu and Kashmir, who are struggling for their right to self-determination for the last 37 years. Rather I can say, they are reciprocating the solidarity with the people of Jammu and Kashmir. The people of Jammu and Kashmir have been in the struggle for the last 73 years. But if we say, what is the major offense? Why they don't get their right to self-determination? What I have understood so far, that is the popular sentiment in Jammu and Kashmir. That is the sentiment of Hum Pakistani hai, Pakistan hamara hai. For the notes of the respected panelists, I will just give the brief that how much sentiment is for the Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir. I'll quote just two instances. When Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was hanged, irrespective of the fact what was the allegation and what was the case against him, the Pakistan was very calm, peaceful, but there were massive protests in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and 4 to 5 people died, irrespective of knowing the fact what is the reason and why he has been hanged. But it was the attachment of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, the state of Pakistan, that somebody who was heading the government has been hanged. And at the same time, when Zulfikar, after that, when General Ziaul Haq was killed in an air crash, there was again a protest in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and 3 to 4 people died. And the reason was that a head of the state has been killed in Jammu and Kashmir. This is what Kashmiris and what kind of attachment the people of Jammu and Kashmir have. And today, when our youth, especially young boys, are being martyred in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, they make a will to their families. They should be wrapped in the Pakistani flags and they should be buried in the Pakistani flags. So this is what kind of solidarity we have been doing with the state of Pakistan, and that is being reciprocated today. Before me, a number of people who talked here, they have talked about the right to self-determination, that people have not been given this right. There is one simple question. Had there been no United Nations resolutions, does it mean that there was no dispute between India and Pakistan? Despite, if we see how this dispute emerged, when the subcontinent was partitioned, Jammu Kashmir was a sovereign state. It had its own flag, it has its own constitution, it has its own set of laws. And it was, as a sovereign, it has to enter into the agreement, so-called agreement, which all parties Hurriyat Conference does not believe, and which we have not seen so far, the instrument of accession in the archives of the India. The agreement, in this agreement, only three things, the so-called agreement, three things were surrendered before India. That was defense, communication, and foreign affairs, and rest of the things were retained by the then Maharaja, which means the sovereignty and the internal law and order and all other laws. And this is due to this reason, when in 1950, when Government of India was in making the constitution, this constitution could not be applied to the state of Jammu and Kashmir because Maharaja didn't surrender the sovereignty and other things to the Government of India. So they had to incorporate Article 370 in the constitution. Rather, I can say it was passed by a presidential order, which gave the president an authority to apply the Indian constitution to state of Jammu and Kashmir with the modifications. And after that, Article 35A was incorporated. So it means that the sovereign character of the state of Jammu and Kashmir was till 1955. And even we know, till 1955, there was a visa. The Indians could not visit state of Jammu and Kashmir until and unless they get the permission from the occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the authorities from the occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So what I want to say, that India has always been claiming, rather negating the United Nations resolutions, that there has been a Shimla agreement. But what is our argument? That is the agreement signed by Maharaja and the Government of India was an agreement between the two sovereigns. And as per the international law, if one of the sovereigns withdraws or violates any of the conditions of that agreement, the parties come back to their original position. So it means there was no agreement at all after the India abrogated Article 370, because Article 370 was. I'm in a hurry because some of my friends has just expired and I have to leave, but I will just put two things for the discussion for the panelists. That is, the Kashmir at this time are facing two issues, which the Government of India has to address, rather Government of Pakistan has to address, because the Government of India has adopted two-pronged strategy in the occupied Jammu and Kashmir. One is ethnic cleansing of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. That means that once the person is died, he is deprived of his right to self-determination, because it is a person, is a living man, living person who has to exercise this right. And second is the demographic changes. The demographic changes, the non-resident Kashmiris are being allowed to purchase the land in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which will definitely change the demographic composition. If after 10 or 20 years, the United Nations has allowed the people of Jammu and Kashmir to exercise their right, the question will be who will cast the vote in that process. So it is a serious concern for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And the last one is the sustenance of the movement at this time. There is, from the Indian side, there is a repression. The freedom of speech and expression has been completely denied. Our leadership is in the bars, behind the bars, and fake cases have been started against them, and there is a probability most of them will be hanged in near future. So government of Pakistan has to start, and it is diplomacy on the war footings. If they will not take care of these issues which the Kashmiris are facing, it will be very late. And lastly, I'm going to thank the government of Pakistan that they have internationalized the Kashmir issue, but the response of the Pakistan and international community do not match the situation, the crisis, the human rights violations, the sufferings of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. I think this should be the major concern. I'm sorry, I have to leave. Thank you very much, Raja Najabat Saab, for giving me the space. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry कि हमें वो बहुत से दोस्तों को नज़रअंदाज करना पड़ा, लेकिन इब्रारुल हक साहब का टाइम था 3:30 बजे तक, उन्होंने पूरा 2 घंटे हमें दिए. Thank you very much. Can I request him to come on the floor and say a few words, and then he can leave. Thank you very much. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका.
Honorable Najabat Sahab, Chairman, JKSDMI, Chairman ISSI, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood Sahab, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It's needless to say that it's a huge pleasure to be here. और आपने कहा 3:30 बजे तक आपने अपनी ज़िंदगी के 35 साल कश्मीर कॉज को दे दिए हैं, शायद 35 से भी ज़्यादा साल. और जिन कश्मीरियों ने अपनी पूरी ज़िंदगियां वहाँ पर दे दी हैं, अगर उनके बारे में हम एक लम्हे के लिए तसव्वुर करें तो रोंगटे खड़े हो जाते हैं इंसान के. I would like to thank the Honorable Foreign Minister and his office for always supporting Youth Parliament of Pakistan in all possible ways with his presence. Today he was virtually present, and also in developing linkages with international communities. As I earlier said, I hardly have words for somebody like Najabat Sahab, who has given his life, almost entire life for Kashmiri cause. I would say he's a stinkingly patriotic person, and we appreciate that. I would also like to appreciate the tireless efforts of my youth parliament team, especially President Ubaid Qureshi. Today, we all are here to express solidarity with our Kashmiri brothers and sisters. A lot has already been said. I'll not go into the details. I would like to skip part of my speech. And I think in a very, very articulate fashion, almost everything has been said. One thing in relation to youth of Kashmir and youth of Pakistan. Look, we have given importance to the youth of Pakistan that they have a platform where they can speak whatever they want to speak. Don't you think that they should also have such platform available to them? Today, we welcome Zain Qureshi Sahab, a sweet friend and member National Assembly. The growing distress, anxiety and depression among the youth of Indian occupied Kashmir is a matter of great concern, which can lead to an alarming threat to the world's peace. There was a famous psychiatrist, David Goldberg, he once said, "A sorrow which does not have a vent makes other organs cry." So if you don't give a platform to someone to at least express whatever they feel, it will come back, and it can come back in a huge way. So Indian occupied Kashmiri youngsters should have a platform, should be able to speak their heart out. The other day I met an old lady. She's from Kashmir. She now lives in Pakistan, but her entire family is in Kashmir. She narrated a small story to me. And I had goosebumps. And she said that her grandson in Kashmir, he shared his feelings with her grandma, and she said that he was saying that, Grandma, you know what, this life to me is so meaningless that I can't explain it to you. And I wish I can easily die, because after death, at least there'll be freedom, that I'll get rid of this depressive life. So this is what the youth, the Indian youth is right now, the challenge which Indian youth is facing. Youth एक ऐसा टाइम होता है ना जिसमें इंसान एंजॉय करना चाहता है, वो खुश रहना चाहता है, वो आजाद होना चाहता है. सो आज मैं इस प्लेटफॉर्म से और इस यूथ पार्लियामेंट, जिसका मैं एक छोटा सा अदना मेंबर भी हूं, और ये 2005 में मैंने इदारा बनाया था, और इस इदारे में से बहुत सारी एनजीओज भी निकल के सामने आई, आज ह्यूमन राइट्स के लिए बहुत सारा काम भी कर रही हैं. मैं इंडियन यूथ को ये पैगाम देना चाहता हूं कि यू आर नॉट अलोन. Look how many people are here. We all are talking about you. They're all concerned about you. We have parliamentarians from United Kingdom who have been with us. And they spoke so well. Some of them had tears in their eyes. I could feel कि कितनी passion है उनके अंदर बात करने की कश्मीरी cause के लिए. So entire world is standing with you. आप कभी ना सोचें कि आप अकेले हैं. The time is not very far. Inshallah, जब freedom आपको मिलेगी, inshallah, you will have books in your hands instead of stones. And inshallah, the pink color of your cheeks will be rejuvenated again. You will have no more scars of pellet guns, pellet bullets on your pellets on your beautiful faces. Inshallah, the time is not very far. We've prepared a song on Kashmir. Our youth parliament friend, I would like to appreciate him. और एक नज़म जो मैंने लिखी थी, वो भी मैं चंद अल्फाज आपके साथ शेयर करना चाहूँगा. ये अलम बगावत है यारो, जो जुल्म के खूनी पंजों पे, गासिब के घाग शिकंजों पे, यूं बिजली बन के बरसेगा कि धरती थर थर कांपेगी. है आज़ादी के दीवानों, कब तक यूं दूर अंधेरों में, दरिया से दूर बसेरों में तुम आज़ादी को ढूंढोगे. ए अहले वतन, ए अहले कफस, तुम खासुल खास हो, आम नहीं. तुम सारे घर की इज्जत हो, तुम हाकिम हो, महकूम नहीं. ये लोहो कलम तुम ही से हैं, तुम ही तकदीर बदलते हो, तुम ही हो मोहम्मद की उम्मत. फिर क्यों जंजीर से डरते हो? मत जालिम से फरियाद करो और बात किसी की याद करो. मंझधार में कूदो मल्ला हो, तूफान के मुकाबिल हो जाओ. यूं साहिल साहिल कहने से क्या खाक किनारा आएगा. यूं साहिल साहिल कहने से क्या खाक किनारा आएगा. बहुत शुक्रिया. पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद. कश्मीर.
Can I request our Member of Parliament and representative of Labour Friends of Kashmir in the London region, Sam Terry, Member of Parliament from London, to say a few words, please. Sam.
Thank you, and what an honour to be here today, ahead of Kashmiri Independence Day tomorrow. As many of you will know, we have a significant Kashmiri community in Ilford South, numbering in the tens of thousands. A community that's very active both in the Labour Party but also in the cause of social justice. As we fight the pandemic, the Kashmiri community have really been leading the way in the efforts to help our community, to do charitable projects, to support each other through this crisis. And so the Kashmiri community in Ilford are great allies of mine as we fight the cause of socialism. We know that in Kashmir itself, the lockdown since August 2019 has been really severe. It's impacted people, it's impacted families of people in my constituency in London. And too often the media blackout, the blackout of communications has been a real problem, people being so fearful for what's happening. We know that the Indian government has implemented really tough measures and substantially increased its presence in terms of security forces. And this has happened in the midst of a global pandemic. It really is an indignity following more than 70 years of oppression, militarization and scarcity. And it's imperative for us who are allies here in Britain that we continue to apply pressure to bring about a just settlement for the Kashmiri people. And that means that the British government must acknowledge its historic role in Kashmir and take responsibility for the current situation. The British government, cannot keep washing its hands and saying it's a matter for the Indian and Pakistani governments to decide. That simply isn't good enough. The colonial history of Britain means that we do have a responsibility to ensure that problems that have been caused because of that history are rectified for future generations to come. And you have my assurance that we in the Labour Party are determined to continue pushing for self-determination, for the upholding of UN resolutions, and for the dignity and human rights of everyone in Kashmir to be preserved, and for there to be hope that one day you'll be free to choose your own destiny.
Thank you very much, Sam. Can I now request Member of Parliament from Rochdale and very long supportive Kashmiri friend, Tony Lloyd, who has just recovered from this coronavirus and always supported us to Kashmir cause and our own community in his constituency in Greater Manchester. Tony Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you to all my friends in the Kashmir community around the world. Tomorrow is Kashmir Solidarity Day, and it's a day when we do remember the Kashmiri people. We remember them obviously in my constituency of Rochdale, the Kashmiri community in the United Kingdom, but we remember in particular, I think, tomorrow, the Kashmiri community in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. We remember the human rights atrocities, those who died. We remember those who are in prison, those who've suffered physical abuse of different kinds in Jammu and Kashmir. And we call upon New Delhi, and we must call upon New Delhi to respect those basic human rights that we expect anywhere on this planet of ours. But we do remember, and I join other people in the call that says those United Nations resolutions that called for the right of self-determination for the Kashmiri people, they must be honoured. And maybe this year coming, as we see, hopefully, inshallah, all around the world, the COVID epidemic being thrust back, signs of hope for the world. Let's give signs of hope to the people of Kashmir. Let me use the words of an earlier speaker. Let's hope that the day comes when we see books in people's hands and not stones. What a tremendous thought. Let's stand with the people of Kashmir tomorrow. Let's stand with the people of Kashmir in demanding justice, demanding the right of self-determination, demanding an end to the abuse of human rights. We owe that to our brothers and sisters in Kashmir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Can I now request former Member of Parliament from Yorkshire Humber and first Kashmiri who has been elected Member of European Parliament, although I have tried my best in '99 to stand as a European parliamentary candidate, but couldn't get there. But Shafaq Mohammed, who was the first Kashmiri. Shafaq Mohammed, please join us for a few minutes. You have got our guest sitting, last speaker, Parliamentary Secretary for Finance and Member of National Assembly, Mr. Zain Hussain Qureshi, son of our Foreign Minister. So we had very prominent dignitaries today from the government, from Parliament of UK and European Union, and we are just waiting for a couple of other parliamentarians who will be joining us, because Pakistani parliament has just finished their session. Shafaq, please.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Raja Sahab, it's a great pleasure. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. As you point out, I am of Kashmiri heritage. Not only my background is of Kashmir, but actually I was born there. And I came to the United Kingdom at the age of 4 to join my rather extended family here in Yorkshire, in Sheffield. And it was a great pleasure to actually represent my region, your region, Raja Sahab, and Amjad Bashir's region in the European Parliament, where I had the pleasure of working with the likes of Phil Bennion, who I have a great deal of respect for. But some of you might remember Phil Bennion. He was the guy that actually, when Article 370 was abrogated in August 2019, I was in my hometown of Chakswari, Kashmir, where I'd just been on a delegation visit with Raja Sahab, where we did meet Shah Mahmood Qureshi and others, where India had unilaterally abrogated 370, and Phil, who was a farmer at the time, basically got off his tractor and sent us a message of solidarity. So it's timely that as we approach Kashmir Solidarity Day, that friends like Phil Bennion and others, Tony Lloyd, etc., Rebecca Long Bailey, we are from different parties, by the way. I'm from the Liberal Democrats, Amjad Bashir, Paul Birdstow, Anthea McIntyre are Conservatives, and the rest of the speakers here, quite a lot of them are from the Labour Party. But we don't have an issue when it comes to the issue of Kashmir, because human rights are universal rights, and we've got to shine a spotlight on wherever human rights abuses take place. And it was really, really great to see the likes of Ibrah ul Haq on the stage today, speaking just before myself, because actually the spotlight on India has been further enhanced by the fact that actually a couple of days ago, Rihanna, a very famous pop star, has now started to retweet the issue around what's happening with the Indian farmers. So just as when we left the European Parliament, the big issue was a CAA, in which I was the lead kind of mover of a resolution, we've got to keep shining this spotlight on Mr. Modi's government, and it's welcomed. And a job for Ubaid at the Youth Parliament would be, look, not only did Rhiannon actually retweet around the Indian farmers, but also Greta Thunberg, that fantastic young environmental campaigner. Now, if she can be concerned about the welfare and the human rights of farmers, then I think we should also approach Greta. And Ubaid, if you could do on behalf of the Pakistan Youth Parliament, I say to her, also remind the world that they should also look into what's happening in Kashmir, because the more spotlight we put on Kashmir, the better it will be. I'd make a plea to Raja Sahab that as and when this world rids itself of COVID-19 and we're able to actually visit each other again, that friends like Phil Bennion and all the other speakers that have been on this call today are invited back to Kashmir, so they are able to see what the situation is. And these will be our biggest advocates on behalf of the Kashmiri people to go out in the world, because Phil Bennion is also part of Liberal International, so it's not just a case of being UK based or actually based in Europe. Phil that actually works across the board internationally, and I'm sure other colleagues on the call here will also have their links with their relevant international bodies. And clearly we are disappointed with the United Nations, but we should not allow them to take their eye off the ball here. You know, they have got some legal obligations, and if India, as Phil pointed out, wants to play a bigger role internationally, whether it's part of this coalition against China or wants to be part of the UN Security Council, so the message has to be clear. If you want to play a bigger role internationally, then you have to abide by international law. And first and foremost, that is about UN Security Council resolutions that your first Prime Minister, Mr. Nehru, actually took to the UN. And therefore, we will continue to fight Kashmir's corner. And my message to those people in the Indian side of the line of control is, despite whatever Mr. Modi does, despite the lockdowns, the brutality, whatever's been inflicted on you, you do have your friends here in Pakistan, but also here in the United Kingdom, in Europe, and we will keep shining that light and spotlight and exposing the human rights brutalities. And I will, for my part, continue to work with the people in the House of Lords, who this week actually have put back legislation that the United Kingdom government should not do trade deals with people who violate human rights. That was a major, major step forward for us. And that's the sort of thing that we need to do, because economic clout, India is trying to use to muscle its way through. And we've got to say, yes, we will like trade deals. We will like trade deals with people who have clean hands, who do not actually violate human rights. And at the moment, I have to say, India does not have clean hands when it comes to human rights issues, whether that's in Kashmir, whether that's with the CAA, or what's happening right now in Delhi with the farmers. Thank you, Raja Saab, for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Shafaq. There are two more friends there, and they are part of JKSDMI team. Councillor Yasmin Dar, our chairperson, UK, and youth chairman Zishan Qureshi, Zishan Arif, who worked hard today, and more than 50% speakers were invited by him, not by me. Although, and I would like to request him to say a few words briefly to his party. Zishan, please.
Thank you very much, Raja Saab, and peace and blessings to everyone listening. I will stay brief regarding, and I want to speak regarding the young people in Kashmir, because a future generation is being denied. And, you know, basically education-wise as well, if we don't educate the young people of Kashmir in the future, you know, they won't have anything. So I think it's very important, especially on Kashmir Solidarity Day, and whilst we express our solidarity to the people of Kashmir, we also should hope for a better future for them, also in terms of education and also in terms of living standards and human rights. So thank you to Raja Saab, and that's all from me.
Sweet and short. So thanks message will stay. So Yasmin, can you stay? Okay, thank you very much. Can I now request our member of National Assembly, Parliamentary Secretary for Finance, and also very famous person and cricketer as well. He's the chairman of this cricket group of the Parliamentarians. So we had a very good discussion with him day before yesterday with Wasim Khan, who is chief executive of PCB from Kashmir. So Zain Qureshi, please, Zain sir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a good afternoon to you all. Allow me to acknowledge amongst us the presence of honorable members of parliament, both from Pakistan and the United Kingdom, as part of this distinguished panel. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the organizers, Mr. Ubaid Qureshi and Raja Najabat Khan Sahab. I feel honored to be a part of this distinguished panel. Ladies and gentlemen, more than 17 years on, the situation of the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir remains a story of unspeakable atrocities and grave human rights tragedies. Generations of Kashmiris have suffered tremendously as Kashmir dispute still awaits final disposition, the resolution of which must be done with accordance to the UN Security Council resolution and the aspiration of the Kashmiri people. The utter disregard for international law, humanitarian law, and international resolutions by the Indian occupation forces in Kashmir continues to pose a question mark on the collective conscience of the international community. Indian unilateral and illegal actions of August 5th, 2019, followed by an unprecedented military siege and a communications blockade, stripped the Kashmiris of their fundamental freedoms amidst rampant human rights abuse. There exists a culture of impunity, which is reinforced by the draconian laws promoted a complete lack of accountability by the perpetrators. The world needs to be aware of the numerous disturbing tales of innocent people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir as they bear the brunt of a systemic state violence. The Indian government cold-heartedly exploited the COVID-19 crisis to intensify the military crackdown, rendering the Kashmiris even more vulnerable than before. Having undergone a 14-day quarantine due to COVID myself, it puts things into perspective for me. Then there is the issue of the demographic apartheid of the valley, which is being carried out by the Indian government through implementation of illegal draconian laws. Incentives are being given to Hindu-speaking belts who are being offered to settle on the lands of Kashmiri under the garb of development and national security. This is entirely unacceptable to the people of Kashmir and Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a matter of great satisfaction that the overseas Pakistani community, especially the Kashmiri diaspora, continue to play their part in highlighting, condemning, and raising voices at various international fora for their Kashmiri brethren. Their firm resolve to stand with the Kashmiri till the realization of their rights for self-determination is evident. They have been actively stressing the issue at international levels with the support of members from different parliaments. I would like to underscore the role of former and current British as well as European parliamentarians, which is worthy of appreciation in this regard. 5th February is observed as 5th February is observed by Kashmiris and Pakistanis the world over as Kashmir Solidarity Day. Pakistan reiterates its support to the Kashmiri brethren, our brothers and sisters, for their inalienable right for self-determination. Tomorrow, as we honor the resilience and struggle for these Kashmiris, I urge the international community to review its engagements with India and condemn India for its illegal actions. Ladies and gentlemen, it bears reiteration that the global spotlight on the plight of Kashmiris is required to halt the ongoing wave of human rights abuses by Indian security forces in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Last year, I visited Azad Jammu and Kashmir on the invitation of the Youth Parliament and Mr. Ubaid Qureshi and Raja Saab. It was refreshing to be able to move around freely and interact with Kashmiri youth. I wish the same can be done one day in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Official delegates and media reporters are denied access and interaction with the people living in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The principles enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights talk of the right of freedom of expression, whereas the voice of Kashmiris has been silenced mercilessly. As I stand before you as a free citizen to speak and express as I wish, I pray the atrocities in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, orchestrated by the Indian government, would one day shake the world's conscience. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Zain Saab. Can I request our chairperson for UK, member of National Executive Committee of the Labour Party, and since we started this campaign in 2009, Yasmin Dar has joined us from Manchester and traveled with us all over the world. She has been stopped because of this COVID, otherwise she would have been with us today in Islamabad. Now I would like to request Yasmin Dar to vote of thanks and also say a few words from you. Yasmin, please.
Thank you, Raja Saab. It's an absolute honour, pleasure and privilege to be here. And the speakers from the initial stages, from Sharia Saab and to the Foreign Minister, every speaker has been absolutely amazing. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for your support, for your solidarity. This isn't about our organisation. This is about obviously the people of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, and the right and standing up for the rights of humanity. So for everyone that has participated, that have come to listen, that have supported us, every journalist that is here that is recording this, absolutely thank you so much. We value all your support. I've been involved with Raja Najabat and Jammu Kashmir determination movement for the last 12 years, and I can honestly say Raja Najabat has been an inspiration. And he is the reason that I've stayed involved. It is a thankless position and it is a voluntary position, but we will raise our voice for the people of Jammu and Kashmir wherever we go and whatever avenue or platform that we sit on. And like Raja Najabat has said, I sit on the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party, and we have raised the issue there on numerous occasions. I am part of the Labour Friends of Kashmir organisation too, and we will raise the profile in regards to this, and every member is passionate. It's not going to stop, and we will continue with our last breath. I also want to say echo some of the sentiments that people have raised. It isn't an issue between Pakistan and India. It is an international issue. And how can any of us on this call think that, well, none of us on this call think that, but it's the rest of the world and communities that we serve that need to understand this is an international issue, and every one of us has a duty and a responsibility to raise the voice for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Well, raise the voice of people that are oppressed in the world. We need to obviously use our freedoms to fight for the freedoms of others. And if we don't get that basic human right that we have and that understanding, you know, at the end of the day, many of us have not struggled or gone through those hardships that the people of Jammu and Kashmir have, or the oppressed in our world have. But you know what? Damn right, we will stand up for them. We will stand up with every breath that we have. The other issue that I want to raise is in regards to the Indian Army. Let me be clear, our armed forces of our countries, whether Pakistan or the United Kingdom, obviously it was born and bred in the United Kingdom, our armed forces are our pride of our nations, of our countries, wherever we've all come from. And when you hear the stories of these soldiers that rape and pillage and murder and abuse people, it's an absolute disgrace. Shame on those soldiers that take those actions, shame. And you are not the pride of your nation. You are shameful individuals that undertake these actions. So I will condemn them wherever I am, but I will praise those soldiers that stand up for human rights and for integrity and for the people and whatever nations that they have gone to serve. Also, I would like to say thank you to everyone, and you are all passionate and you are all welcomed at every level. Whether you come here to UK, we will support you, but each one of you, please take it back to whatever forums you go to and raise those human rights violations that are occurring in our world. Let us remember we belong to one race, the human race. And if we have that understanding, we will stand up for anybody, anywhere in the world. So alhamdulillah, thank you so much. And thank you, Raja Saab, once again.
एवरीबॉडी आप सब लोगों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, आपकी बहुत मेहरबानी। जैन साहब आपने कंक्लूड किया हमारे पास आकर। मैं यूथ एसोसिएशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान का, हुर्रियत कॉन्फ्रेंस के नुमाइंदान का, अपने उन तमाम दोस्तों का, भाइयों का और बहनों का, कमल का, मरियम का, या रियाना का, आसिया का, अब्दुल कादिर साहब, आपकी सारी टीम का, और फिर सबसे बढ़कर ISSI की टीम का, जिन्होंने ये हमारा फंक्शन कामयाब करवाया, उन तमाम मेंबरान पार्लियामेंट का, मोहतरम वज़ीर ख़ारजा साहब का, शहरयार अफरीदी साहब का, और एक शख्स, अजीम शख्सियत मेरे पास बैठी रही है फ़ोटो बनवाने के लिए। वो बहुत काम करते हैं लेकिन आज उनको बिल्कुल कोई मौका नहीं दिया हमने। मोहम्मद आज़म साहब हमारे सेक्रेटरी जनरल हैं, और ये सारी आज सुनते रहे हैं। सुनाने पे आते तो बहुत लंबा होता, इसलिए मैंने उनको कहा कि आपकी बजाय यास्मीन डार ही शुक्रिया अदा कर दे। तो फिर इंशाल्लाह किसी वक्त इसी हाल में, इसी शहर में, इसी मुल्क में आपको फिर मिलेंगे। कश्मीर के हवाले से आप सबके जज्बात का शुक्रिया, आपके एहसासात का शुक्रिया, और उन तमाम बहनों, भाइयों और अजीज़ों के लिए जिन्होंने अपनी जानों का नजराना पेश करके हमारी इस तहरीक की आबियारी की, और इस कमिटमेंट के साथ कि रियासत जम्मू और कश्मीर की मुकम्मल आज़ादी और उसके इलाके पाकिस्तान के साथ तहरीक तकमील पाकिस्तान के खात्मे तक हम अपनी जदोजहद जारी रखेंगे इंशाल्लाह। ISSI वालों ने अरेंज किया हुआ है, तो आप सारे लोग चाय पी सकते हैं। जिन्होंने 2 मिनट पहले पी लिया हमसे, वो भी, और हम सारे भी। थैंक यू वेरी मच जी, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका।